Okay. In case y'all didn't know, this is the day. Happy Black African Liberation Day. That's every day. But right here on the Remix Morning Show, this is how it go on Black Power Media. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. Let me introduce you to your host. We got Dr. Jared Paul, Jackie Lukeman, Burn It Down Kim Brown, and Kamal K. Frank.
And you are? Did you introduce yourself?
I always do, every time.
Did he? My bad.
No, he didn't.
I don't think I heard it. I don't think I heard it.
I am the Ear Doctor, and let me introduce.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's how you do it.
Sorry.
No,
I wasn't paying
I've always
attention.
been doing. I'm glad you finally listened.
I listen, Ear Doctor. I listen. I heard
Thank
it.
you. It's only
Only Kim listens to you. Well,
Yeah, I'm
only half
sorry.
the time.
Sorry.
I think she tries to listen to your non-political statements. Otherwise, she'd go. Yeah. That's all.
That's what I'm here for.
And
I
it's
leave all that to y'all.
Oh,
Nah, I appreciate you. Happy African Liberation Day, everybody. Although I'm really bad with these dates because to me, I really do. I know it sounds cliche, but it is really like every day is ALD for me.
Hey, you know,
Every day is, whoever's birthday and commemoration day. It's all day, every day. But yes, happy African Liberation Day.
word.
Good to see you.
Indeed.
Yes, indeed. Shout out to the remixers as well. I have a special request real quick off the top because I just saw something last night that I should have known, but has kind of got me very excited in a research direction. So
And there he was like, nope.
he was like, tell them. Not me.
I do not want to be a part of this. No.
But my request is this. So the other day I mentioned, increasingly I've been noticing that the Nielsen and Selig references to buying power are being replaced by McKinsey and Company references to buying power. They seem to be the more referenced new consulting group offering up all of this analysis for advertisers. And I just saw this video about what we had talked about earlier in this platform with Biden's appointment, Lisa Thompson Greenfield. Is that her name? Something like that. She comes out of that consulting world. And we talked about how part of her job was to go into the world and encourage countries to adopt corporate policies. Well, McKinsey and Company, who's been talking a lot lately about black buying power and what we can do with the dollar and all this other stuff. I just see this video about their relationship with the Macron administration in France, helping him get elected and also helping France adopt much more corporate aligned policies, particularly around how much, for instance, they spend on housing for poor people. And of course, all the consultants come in and say, give us hundreds of millions of dollars and collectively in the billions now. And we will tell you to set a policy that says something, it sounds a little familiar around here. Cut benefits services to the poor, cut dividend checks to the corporate, owners, the stockholders. So what I'm requesting real quick from the remixers, everybody, is more on McKinsey and Company's relationships to all of this kind of stuff. If you see it, please send me that information as I'll start to kick in, my focus on it as well. But we have such an illustrious crowd here that I wouldn't want to, miss out on the opportunity to invite that resource to be helpful. So,
Kamal's okay and all,
Huh?
I said Kamal's okay and all, but I mean,
Well, I meant even the broader remix audience that would help, balance out the Kamals and the,
So, Dr. Ball, you're talking way too heavy for me at 8:06 a.m., my guy. 8:06 a.m. I am only on a half a cup of coffee, so I'm like, yes.
Y'all in the finance capital,
you're right.
neoliberalism.
I feel like one of your students at an 8 a.m. class. Like, I'm here, dog, but I'm not here.
I hear you, but it's also
Please don't call on me. Please don't call
I'm
on
on
me.
that
Please
old
don't
man
call on me.
schedule. Like 8 a.m. is late for me. So
Ooh,
I've been
shit.
so
Oh.
you're right. Anyway, it's good to see you. I just get excited. I was like, that is how I feel in my classrooms too. And I look at my students and like, it's too much too soon. And I'm like, but I've been waiting for you all morning.
And they're sitting there like, he is doing too much.
And they said,
already.
Dr. Ball, we hung over. Please slow down. Slow this lesson down a little bit.
That's the biggest criticism I get in my evals, Jackie. He's doing too much.
Oh, really?
Dr. Ball is
No,
right,
seriously,
but he be
the
doing
only-
too much.
the standard, usually my evals are very high. And we should come back and talk about that because I'm on I won't throw him under the bus. There's a very elite professor in Africana studies that people love to listen to who gave me some advice years ago on how to maneuver through these academic streets. And I follow his method of engagement with students. So my evals are usually very, very high. But the one area of criticism is usually he's doing too much. He's very radical, and we appreciate that. But it doesn't. Sometimes we just try to talk about a movie.
It's not just a movie.
And that's it. It's never just a movie.
I think your friends say that in real life too. Your friends say that in real life also. Yeah.
All of them. That's why I
family.
watch movies alone.
Yep.
They were like, we're just trying to see the movie. And Chad kept on talking all the way through. That's a misrepresentation.
My children do that, Kamal. In fact, they just did it this past weekend. Daddy, it's just a movie. We just try to make it through the scene. And I'm like pausing the joint. I'm like, but did you see that?
Daddy, it's just Encanto, please. Just let the movie play. Just let it play.
No, they were the ones that caught it this time. They were like, Daddy, look, he's doing better. They got black Latinos in the joint. I was like, oh.
He's like, my work is done here. My work is done.
Mm-hmm. Or you're like my family when I break down all of the terrible capitalist, white supremacist, neoliberal, bullshit narratives, imperialist narratives in a movie. They just look at me and go, but did you like it though?
Right. Did you
enjoy the movie though?
No, the best part, Jackie, is mid-movie when you stop the movie and stand up and give a little speech. Like, I gotta give you the context. I can't let it go without some context. But do you know why this is even happening? They're like,
okay. You do be doing too much though.
Sometimes.
That should be your BPM evaluation. Jared tries to do too much.
Doing too much.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy to see all y'all's beautiful smiling faces this morning.
Yeah. It is good to smile.
It is. It is.
Right now.
Thank you. You know what I'm saying? We sit in this country again where children get massacred and it's on to the next story, right? And all the same sort of reasons and hand wringing, we need to rein in gun control, and this country is politically not willing to do anything to save the lives of kids. Of course, except that's control their bodies once they approach menstruation age, right? But
I was going to say they were born, Kim. They got here.
They got here. That's what more protecting kids do you want? I mean, we can't feed them. Can't feed them. I mean, because no baby formula.
We got
and then they're threatening people from making the home formulas.
Yeah. The last I looked at that story, now it's 19
horrible
kids who are officially have been killed. So it's just crazy.
Well, that would actually be good. That would be a walk back from one of the numbers I had seen. I had actually seen it hit over 20.
God.
But so I hope that was a correction. And it went
so
back.
Is that 19 including the teacher?
19 children and 2 adults. And within those 2 adults, I'm not sure if one of those is including the 18-year-old gunman who was killed by the police.
And I gotta say, I'm all for people owning guns. But I think that we have reached a point in this country where There are already more guns in people's private possession than there are people in this country. Literally. There are literally more guns that people have purchased. There are 336 or so million people in this country. There are more guns than people that folks own in this country. You know that's not us. You know we are not the ones because we were scared off of owning guns since I, since the slave patrols, since emancipation, since it was illegal for even freed formerly enslaved people to own guns, because folks were terrified that if black folks got guns, we would do the exact same thing to them that they did to us. So this is not even an issue of quote unquote illegal guns on the street. I think when we talk about gun control, that's where politicians focus their efforts. Oh, we got to keep illegal guns off the street. There are not that many people buying illegal guns in this country. Ain't that many people in the hood? First of all, it's not that many people in the hood to own that many guns. But it's not that many people in the hood buying hundreds of millions of guns in this country. That's not where the problem is. But this government that's made up of the very class character of people and how do I want to say it? Racial, I guess, ideology of folks who own most of those guns, they're never going to legislate those folks, their voters, their ideological brethren, to do anything about those folks and how they acquire guns. So I don't know what needs to change about the conversation about sensible gun control laws. I'm all for people owning a gun, but I also think you need to have insurance. You need to have some type of liability insurance when you buy a gun. I have to have it with my car. I think that there needs to be required training for owning a gun. You cannot just buy a gun. You should, as soon as you buy a gun, you go to the gun range. That's it. You never take the training, you don't get your gun. I do think there should be some type of registry. However, I understand that in the context of this government having a database of everybody's anything is deeply problematic. So I don't know what the answer is, y'all. And I'm willing to admit that something needs to be done, but I honestly don't know what it is at this point.
Well, the solution has to lie in part with an acknowledgement of the facts. And even if we had so-called stricter gun registration or more gun laws surrounding gun ownership, that would not have prevented any of these mass shootings. None, now one, because all, or if not all, certainly a large majority of the guns purchased that were used in these mass shootings, even recent ones, older ones, we can go back to Columbine. Them kids walked in the store and purchased those guns legally. Like, so illegal gun ownership is not what's driving mass shootings. It's not what's driving people to shoot up supermarkets, churches, and elementary schools. We don't know what the legal circumstances surrounding this latest case in Texas. I'm not sure if that information has been reported upon, but we certainly know that the white racist terrorists in Buffalo, New York, legally obtained their guns, despite having made a school shooting threat the year prior. He was on a potential red flag list in the state of New York, and police chose to ignore it. No, there's no problem here with Peyton. Peyton is all fine to go purchase his guns legally at age 18. So more gun laws would not have stopped jack shit, unfortunately. So I don't think more gun laws is the problem, because you're never going to be able to seize and or register 400 million of anything. But what you can do is take all the wealth of this country, all the resources that this country has available, and finally set up the mass apparatus so people can be identified if they have some sort of mental health issue, if people are in fact making threats against themselves or against the community, because clearly law enforcement cannot stop shit. You have to stop giving all these billions to the police who literally cannot stop a mass shooter. The reports and the details that I'm hearing coming out of Uvalde, Texas, is that law enforcement was apparently on his ass when he walked into that elementary school and they could not stop him. Wasn't no good guy with a gun available to stop him, whatever in the fuck that means. So cops clearly are ineffective in preventing or stopping mass terror. It's abhorrent.
Even after you commit your act and then sit down at a local restaurant and call them, they can't apparently find you, as was the case in Brooklyn. But more on that in just a minute. But unfortunately, just like I had to listen on the radio this morning, a host making a bad segue. We got to do the same and get to some sports.
Oh no. He's sitting there with all his balls. Oh.
That's the only mass shooting we want to talk about. Football, soccer.
Can I do an imitation of
mass shooting? As in shooting. Come on with the puns, Kamal. Now
I was totally.
Come on, man.
I'm trying.
Can I do a quick imitation of Jared sitting with his kids watching a movie?
Uh-oh.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh. The indubitably missness of the capitalized gnosis of pharmaceuticals. If you would just into your ear, listen to what I'm secreting, it'll be good. Brothers, sisters.
Even that should be criticized or critiqued.
Yeah, really.
Why they always make fun of the brother who comes with the knowledge or the sister with the knowledge? Why is that a stereotype of American
my
movie
milk
making?
of magnesia? I remember that one too.
I don't know. I always see Jared as kind of like a nicer Furious Styles. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Jared is like nicer Furious Styles. Yeah. Clean up his hair.
I appreciate that, Kim. I appreciate you trying to clean me up
part.
A little bit, but nah,
Word.
Especially in my 20s, I was a mess.
Well, let's get to the sports real quick. Take this quick break, and let's do it right here on the Remix Morning Show, y'all.
Yep. Sports. Right.
Ear doctor.
What's good, everybody? What's good, everybody? Welcome out once again to the Remix Morning Show. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and please make sure y'all go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell for more things coming on Black Power Media. And go to patreon.com, drop some change on Black Power Media, and become a member. That's right. We even got a love button at the bottom of the screen now, so check that out too. All right, so we talking sports right now. As you can see, last night I got the chance to watch the Golden State go against Dallas, and actually it's 3-1 now. So Golden State is in the lead. Over on the East Coast, you got Miami going against Boston. That's a 2-2 tie up. So they got a game tonight. Other than that, let me go ahead and talk about another person that's trending in sports news. We're talking about Brittany Griner. That's right. Right now, it's looking like they're saying Russia is looking to exchange WNBA star for notorious arms trafficker Victor Bout. That's right. That's wild. Bout, he pretty much was known as the Merchant of Death. He he started conflicts in Africa and Middle East with weapons. So he flooded the whole region with weapons. So yeah, they're talking about doing a trade. That's wild right there. All right. Other than that, speaking of basketball last night, I don't know if any of y'all got a chance to check out what was it? Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr got on the microphone and they started to ask him about some basketball. And Steve was like, well, let me tell you something. I ain't got time to talk about that. Let me tell you what I do got time to talk about.
Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here. And a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly Black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California. And now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. And I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
Now that is how you make an exit right there. You know what I mean? So that was what it is. Steve Kerr, one of the reasons I definitely know Golden State lost last night, because they wasn't even trying to be in the game. They was dealing with that. That's what it is. That's the sports right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's get back to your host. Yeah.
Okay, let me piss somebody off right now, right off the break. Let's just get it out of the way so we can get on with the show. That whole narrative about Brittany Griner and the horrible arms dealer that the Russia is good. That man did not start any conflicts anywhere. He was selling weapons to leftist movements in places like Nicaragua, in Bolivia, in Colombia. He was providing arms to people who are fighting against U.S. imperialism and their allies. Is he doing it out of the kindness of his heart? Hell no, he's doing it to make money. But the idea that, it's interesting that the United States government and the U.S. press would smear him as an arms dealer when it's the U.S. and its allies that are starting these conflicts and backing these fascist governments in these countries that people have to fight against. So this dude is giving the people fighting against the fascist arms, and I'm not entirely mad at him about that. Arms dealers for what they are, but I mean, maybe he's got a few principles. I'll give him that much.
Can I? He has discerning taste, though, Jackie. Can I mention real quick? 10 years ago, prior to Sputnik Radio being Sputnik, it was the Voice of Russia, and I hosted a show called The Kim Brown Show, and we were heard in DC. That. Yes, girl. Yes, girl. Anyway, but. And we were heard on the air on AM airwaves in New York. And his name is Victor Boot, by the way. Air doctor. I know it's spelled B-O-U-T, but it's pronounced Boot. So Victor Boot was being held in Rikers after his federal trial. And Victor Boot could listen to Voice of Russia. And I actually somewhere have a phone clip of, because, our outlet used to interview him often because, they were concerned about how he was being treated and whether or not he was receiving a fair trial. So they interviewed him lots of times. And they asked him, so do you listen to Voice of Russia? And he laughed and said, yes, I love listening to the Kim Brown Show. So I've always sort of worn that as a tiny badge of honor, as sick and macabre as it may be, that one of the most infamous arms dealers in the world fuck with my show.
Wear that as a big ass badge of honor.
Right after that.
Show
That's not a tiny badge of honor. That's a big badge of honor. Wear that.
Wait till you see Jackie's FBI file. You worried about mine. Wait till you see Jackie Lukemon's. Jesus.
And I just love how he's being juxtaposed. Whatever good or bad he is said to have done, it's still funny to me. He's being juxtaposed against the sister who had weed in her bag.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, this was a trade that the U.S. government didn't want to make, right? Because they did not want to let that man go. But whether we agree with Russia's fucked up drug laws or not, I think we have to look at them and all drug laws around the world as an extension of this U.S. war on drugs, because that's where these kind of we think that the war on drugs that was ramped up by Nixon and every president after him was like just a U.S. phenomenon, but that it really was policy that was adopted or influenced drug policy in a lot of U.S. Friendly countries around the world. Remember, there was a time when Russia was heavily under the influence of the United States government and Harvard economists who introduced capitalism into the country. And a part of that was some of these drug laws that they still have, where they criminalize still drugs that now this country is like, okay, now we're going to legalize drugs, but the rest of the world is not on that. So, I mean, all of this, it's fucked up that Brittany Griner was arrested for a vape pen, a weed pen or whatever.
Allegedly, Jackie.
Allegedly.
I'm not convinced that she had that. I'm not convinced that she had that. This woman is a professional ball player who has been traveling the globe for the majority of her adult life. I'm not convinced that this child who just came to Russia to make $1 million was trying to risk it all for some hash cartridges. I don't buy it.
And even if she was, I just think she's at this stage, whether I think Russia had reason for its invasion of Ukraine, which I certainly think it does. I just think holding her is a separate issue that they just need to let her go, whether or not it's for their own propaganda's sake and or whether or not it's because they have fucked up laws and they're implementing them in fucked up racist ways and holding this woman far longer than what she should be held or should have been held or should have been arrested. If they have a problem with her in their country, then just extradite her to the U.S. to get her out of there, as opposed to holding her for all of this time period and apparently using her as a bargaining chip with the U.S. And so I give them no credence whatsoever for holding this woman, whether she, again, had something or didn't have some. Extradite her, leave her, let her. She's not involved in your fight. She's a basketball player. I don't think she's exerting any real political influence over anything or anyone. She's now just caught up in some game that she has no control over. So.
Well, we now know the real reason why the U.S. got rid of Victor Boot, and because he listened to Kim Brown's radio show.
Right. It wasn't long after that they transferred him from New York, I think, to a Supermax prison out in Colorado, if he's still out there. So
now they finally got him even farther away.
And now they're like, okay,
no radio for you. No radio for you.
Yeah. I don't like Russia so much you could go back. No shouts for Kim.
Russia wants Victor Boot back bad. So I feel like Brittany's going to be dangled out there even more until they get him back. Yeah. So,
I mean, I think they're going to make the deal. I don't know, that I think that this was the typical process for if you commit a crime and you're an American citizen in Russia. I'm not so sure that, there were the stories about, Brittany Griner's been disappeared. I didn't buy that at all. I think it was just the typical legal process of someone being arrested for a crime, whether we like or agree with the crime or not, in another country that is also at the same time at war. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the circumstances are different. Security's a lot tighter. I'm not, giving Russia any credit for being any better than anybody else when it comes to Black folks. And I understand that Russia does have a serious homophobia problem. Absolutely. But I think that people in this country used Brittany Griner's arrest as another way to point the finger at Russia and make them out, oh, look at how evil Russia is. They disappeared this Black queer basketball player. And I think that is an incorrect narrative.
I think that's
Just as
true.
Kim,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
both could be true at the same time. I think you are correct that. Ooh, Kim left us. I'm
where'd she
sure she'll be
go?
back. She got mad at your statement.
I mean, I didn't mean to make her mad. I was hoping to make other people mad, not y'all. Dang.
I'm sure, like, I think it's probably both are true. I think the U.S., there's a propaganda system here that, of course, is going to use whatever to its advantage to make Russia, quote unquote, look bad, or to make sure that Russia has no quote unquote allies, or anyone thinks of it as if it has any reasons to do what it does, except that they're crazy lunatics and they're controlled by a crazy lunatic, and so they have no real priorities or interests that anybody needs to think about or respect. So I think that's true, but I think it's also true that Russia. I don't believe that, just like I don't believe the U.S. has some sort of due process system. It doesn't override for political reasons. Russia also has systems which I'm sure it overrides for political reasons. In fact, the mere idea that they're in some discussion around trading somebody who's supposedly charged for a criminal offense, but they're willing to do some trade for political reasons, says that due process is something that's for us to take in as regular citizens, but doesn't apply when there's bigger political objectives at stake. And so I think, so whatever reason she was held for, if they would be smart if they want to do anything around the issue of propaganda being used against them, is to not allow not allow this propaganda system to continue by just doing something decent. Let's just say, even if they get some value out of it, and letting her go.
I think I agree with that. I mean, I understand that Russia making this deal, and it is Russia's deal to make, because the U.S. is in a position where they cannot be seen as being offered a trade for quote unquote prisoners and saying no. Like that would be like politically just horrible for the United States, saying no, we're not going to do anything to make sure that you release this American citizen who is Black, who is queer, back to us, outside of or truncating this due process that you allegedly. The United States cannot do that. Not now, not in these times. And they know that. And Russian politicians know that. And both sides are absolutely, playing this particular moment for politics to get what they want. This time, it just happens to be Russia has the upper hand. They're like, fine, we'll let her go, but you're giving us our prisoner that you have.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I know that there are other stories that we wanted to get to, including coming back to this school shooting. But so it's like from bad news and propaganda to worse. Again, shout out to Sister Erica for hooking us up with the stories. Sister May in the back as well on the production. But this is apparently the latest that they have on the Texas elementary school shooting. The gunman bought 2 assault rifles on his 18th birthday, barricaded himself in a classroom, killing 19 children and 2 teachers. Apparently, he also shot his grandmother, who survived, and then was chased to the school. So I'm not really clear on anything more than that. So I'll turn it over to any of you. But apparently there's it's not, according to this, it seems that it has not been confirmed if the school was the actual target or if this was like developed on the fly, so to speak, as part of some other chase or something like that. So
yeah, I don't know if the school was Kim, you're on mute if you're trying to talk. You wanted to? I'll jump in until she
Yeah.
fixes her mute problem. So I don't know per se. Obviously, if how unlike the other shooter who within a certain the shooter of last week in Buffalo, and it's so obviously these just the amount of mass shootings in the United States. I mean, the United States is the originator of the mass shooting and continues to be not necessarily exclusively the home of it. But there's obviously far more mass shootings here than any other place in the world. So whether or not it was his original plan, I don't think I don't think what happened at the school was a direct result of only the chase, because if he was just running for the sake of running, apparently this person was running and shooting and purposely shooting kids. And so I think we have to wait to see what the rationale and or reason or whatever cause that the shooter may give for why they did what they did. So far, I don't think that information, at least, and I have not seen anything that is sort of publicly verified if they have a rationale or reason as to when this person decided that this was their course of action.
They don't seem to say, because this story says that when asked, they said there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Quote, we're trying to determine that is what he was doing. That's why we're working with the FBI right now to look back to see if there were any indicators, any red flags, looking at social media. What we know about the shooter is that he is a resident of Uvalde. He did attend one of the local high schools. He lived with his grandparents, was unemployed, no friends, no girlfriend that we can identify at this time, no criminal history, no gang affiliation as well, end quote.
And even I think the racial question is up in the air because and again, we don't have any information about.
Well, when they said gang affiliation, I admit that I thought that they were trying then to suggest that he was not white. Like, so that's what I was.
Well, I think he has a Latino, what do I call a Latino last name?
Salvatore.
But again,
Ramos.
I don't know if you guys have seen any
that
pictures.
name?
I've not seen
Okay.
any pictures.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name either. Salvatore Ramos.
So this is what I think we really need to pay attention to, because I think that they're going to try to erase certain elements of what happened yesterday, because if law enforcement was engaging with him, because it sounds like they were, because he was able to allegedly shoot at or shoot and injure minor injuries to law enforcement officers. From what agency, I'm not exactly sure, but it sounds as though police had him in their sights. Like, if he allegedly crashed his truck in proximity to the elementary school. And from what I'm able to glean, and I know the details are still coming out, but it sounded like law enforcement was on his ass, like literally on his heels, and he ran into the elementary school and then began to kill children. Like, if the cops basically had him, if they could see him, why couldn't they stop him? Like, the ineptitude and the ineffectiveness of what policing actually is, and the myths and the narratives about this whole good guy with a gun bullshit that cops, if the cops was there, they could have stopped it. They was there and couldn't do shit about it. This makes me very angry, obviously, very angry. Like, we make no efforts to protect children in this country. And even with police in proximity of a person with a gun wearing body armor, which I disagree that body armor should be available for retail purchase, for kind of reasons, I guess, just like this. But if the cops, I want to know the timeline from which law enforcement first engaged with him. When did they first see him prior to him arriving at the school? Was he in their scopes? Was he being pursued by law enforcement? Did any law enforcement see him go in the school? Like, I feel as though police are going to try to erase a lot of their culpability out of this. They're going to erase the fact that they had him, they seen him, they was chasing him, they couldn't catch up with him, and they could not stop over 20 lives from being taken. They're going to try to make themselves look good in this, y'all. And I think it's really important that we follow journalists, independent journalists particularly, because we know a lot of network news will go along with the propaganda. Whatever the police say, officials say, authorities say, that is what's going to be reported. I want to hear from local individual journalists familiar with Uvalde, who may have been listening to a police radio at the time. Like, I want to know way more things here, because I feel as though the cops are going to be like, well, there was nothing we could do to stop him. How? How?
sure they are,
And
yeah.
by the way,
Yeah.
that school that school district, Uvalde, there's some letters afterward. I think it's ISD or somewhere in there. Our Texas people let us know. Uvalde School District basically has its own police policing. There was a chief of police of the Uvalde School District. They have, I believe, 5 officers on their staff. Like, don't fall in. I know we won't, but don't let
Well, that
people in
article,
circles tell you that we needed more police on the scene. There's cops out the ass.
And that's what's going to come from
just
this.
Jackie, just quickly, that
Yeah.
comment that just popped up. The article that I was reading said the grandmother survived, that she was the first shooting victim, but that she survived, and that they were looking for the grandfather. Sorry,
Okay.
Jackie, go ahead.
No. I mean, that's what the narrative is going to be. And it's interesting because yesterday we had Sean and I had Kalanji on the show for the live hour, and we were talking about the shooting in Buffalo and all of the absolute just fucked up bullshit coming out of that. The fact that the store manager, we didn't even get to talk about the fact that the store manager called 911 and got hung up on because she was whispering, because this little white racist is in there in the store killing people. She's in fear for her life, and the 911 dispatcher is telling her, why are you whispering? You need to speak up, and hung up on the woman. So there's the idea, and now we see this situation in Uvalde where there is pretty clear to me a police, I don't know if you want to call it misconduct, but malfeasance. Like if there is all this money always poured into police departments to protect and serve, and there's all these other training programs that we're supposed to be told that all this money goes into, how come y'all couldn't stop? How come all this training? How come all this extra whatever? How come all the 1033 program and all this militarized equipment couldn't stop either one of these people? So I think these issues speak to, obviously, the proof that everything they've been telling us about policing and what policing needs and what we need to do to make policing better, none of it works. It's all a lie, completely worthless, doesn't work. So that people should stop believing that if you don't understand now that there is no amount of training, there's no amount of equipment, there's no amount of extra anything that's going to make policing in this country better in any way that is a benefit to us, to make us really safe, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But
that's also, why I think for me too. Oh, I'm sorry. Finish your statement. I'm so sorry.
No, just real quick. But it also, this also indicates that we are at war. We are at war in this country with the system that runs this country. This should not be an esoteric concept for people anymore. We're literally being gunned down in the streets by malign actors, whomever they are, for whatever reason, and there is no apparatus in this country to stop it or protect us. We're at war, and we always have been, but now other people's kids are being in the crossfire. So I'm just wondering what people's response is going to be.
For me, I'm going to say things that are going to, I don't know if it's going to make the chat unhappy, or even some of our more, I consider myself a radical, but I take a cautious approach to the amount of guns and weapons I think that private citizens are allowed to have. And for me, in a civilized society, there's no reason to have 400 million guns that anybody can have at any point in time, along with body armor and helmets, to be able to, at their whim, go out and just shoot people. So, America is not a civilized society. And so it makes sense in this society why these things happen. You have a society that's as large scale, sort of collective mental health issues, a society that is based in a white supremacist, violent system of retribution and killing and otherism that leads to this kind of action. But for me, in a society that says that it wants to solve a problem of having citizens just killed when they go to school, when they go to work, when they go to shop, the only answer to me is not having as much guns and or access, and that doesn't get solved strictly through a background check to me, which I think is like Steve Kerr is calling for. That, and again, I'm not suggesting it's going to happen in the society because I know it's not, but if I lived in a society where this was the destructive outcome of mass, the ability of people in mass to have weapons unchecked. So this is one of these occasions where I think there's culpability by police. Like you said, there's no training that's going to allow people to stop someone if they have weapons to just stick a weapon in your car, drive someplace, get out and start shooting. And it's going to be after the fact, for the most part, that you're able to stop that person at some point. But that's only after the damage is inflicted. So for me, there's a lot of stuff here around this. If we were using our weapon, and even beyond the mass shootings, just to, again, we don't talk about this a lot, but even the type of killings that happen in our neighborhoods, that is what we call, horizontal violence. We don't deal with that a lot in terms of actually talking about it. But, these things for me, if we were using weapons for warlike times, this is not the Panthers in the Mumford Bill of California. We're talking about indiscriminate shootings, people being angry at something and then taking guns and acting out. So I don't necessarily know all the answers or what everything that I would suggest, but just the mass ability for anybody and everybody to have a weapon and to be angry. And when they're angry, they can reach for that weapon and do something. To me, that's not going to be fixed in a sick society. But it also makes me think that, just so many guns, the proliferation of them is something that has to be talked about and dealt with. Again, at least that's kind of what I deal. Yeah.
That's why for me, the more I think about these incidents, to me, it's not an issue of policing at all. So good or bad or institutional or otherwise, even a quote unquote good police system can't prevent something like this. If you're going to flood society with this level of weaponry, make it this easy to get this level of high-powered weaponry, those assault rifles, the idea that you could walk in at 18 years old and pick up that level of firepower is absurd. Even if I wanted to agree with even the philosophical idea of being armed to some extent, nobody needs that level of weaponry or should need that level of weaponry in to your point, Kamal, civilized society. But if you're going to drop this amount of weaponry, this level of high-powered weaponry, make it this accessible, in addition to a society that with this level of inequality, this level of hostility, this level of ignorance, then no quality, there is no training, there is no police arrangement that could prevent or solve this as an issue. So this is, for me, the biggest, most egregious example of why society as a whole needs a revolution. You have to have a situation where people are not put under this level of pressure, are not then, in addition to that, given this level of access to this level of firepower. Because even as much as I just have a disdain for the police, I can't turn around and say that what could, I don't know the specifics of this situation, but in general, with a school shooting or a public mass shooting, what is somebody supposed to be able? There's no training for that. Like there's nothing that is going to prepare people in total to withstand and respond in whatever ways that that would make it any better than what we get. So again, to Steve Kerr's, or to the point about Steve Kerr's myopia, this is far beyond the 50 ridiculous lunatic Congress people who are holding up a bill about a background check. This is about an entire societal arrangement that is, again, allowing for this level of inequality and hostility and access to firepower. So even just lastly, if we wanted to have a society that said you have to have some legal right to bear some form of armament, we want to be able to hunt and protect the home. It could be get rid of the assault rifles. You could have at most a shotgun and a handgun. And if you really want to be a quote unquote sporting person and hunter, one single shot reloadable rifle. I mean, if you know, how much do you need to take out into the woods to shoot Bambi? You know what I'm
You
saying?
don't need
Like,
that much. You
so I'm
you
just
don't
saying.
need that much.
I
But I
try to
think
think about. I'm sorry, Jackie. I try to think about the practicalities, like the logistics of trying to recover 400 million weapons. It doesn't. It does not make sense. There's no way to go about doing that. Not to mention the people like myself who would laugh at you if you tried to come take my gun away. The reason why I am a Second Amendment supporter, and I don't even like to say it like that, the reason why I support gun ownership is because all my enemies have guns, okay? So I'm not going to be the only one out here gunless while the crackers and the rapists are armed to the fucking teeth. That's not going to happen. But the elephant in the room that we don't talk enough about is how in the hell, why are males, why are boys in our society socialized this way? You look at the overwhelming majority of whom is committing mass shootings specifically, it's overwhelmingly men. Overwhelmingly men. And there is something very sick within our society that males and young males and boys feel as though that this is their recourse. They're mad. They're pissed. They can't get laid. So the answer is to take a weapon and to go shoot and kill strangers, or to use their weapon to target interpersonal violence in a variety of ways. But that's the conversation I never heard. I never hear anybody talk about how is it that American boys specifically are socialized to respond in this way. Okay, this is not, I mean, it is a societal problem, but it's not women going out here and doing this. It's not young girls going to find their daddy's gun and take it to school and shoot it up. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but it is society that is teaching these boys. So even to your point, that's what I'm getting at. Like, that's what I'm saying. These boys who are encouraged through, again, the poverty, the inequality, the media, and hey, Top Gun 2 is about to come out. So there is a societal inducement to young men and boys to these ends. So that's why I'm saying,
well, why does it only appeal to boys though? If
because it's the glorification that's geared towards boys,
right?
Through not only the propaganda but the military, right? Somebody put it like the whole military apparatus. A lot of these shooters, this one excluded, but when you do a breakdown of these mass shooters, a lot of them have military training, right? They come from a military background. And again, we're talking about the mass shootings that happen here. These military folks who go out and commit the mass killings in other countries, who get medals for it, right? Who get awards for it, or it gets tucked away. So the mass shootings are just a further indication of the sickness of the society and the violent nature of the society, and how it plays out here and how it plays out around the world. The fact that the United States is so willing to use a military to do the things that it does, which is basically, I mean, we haven't talked a lot about this, but the New York Times series about Haiti, gives some perfect examples about the mass shootings and killings and of people for sport, right? The history of this country in Europe, and the European history in particular, speaks to killing for sport. There's so many stories, to take it way back, right? When the Columbus and so forth, and the using swords to split open women's stomachs to see if the baby comes out. This level and sickness of violence, the chopping off of hands, so that because the folks didn't get enough gold. So the level and sickness of violence in this type of society is something that goes way back and manifests itself today. And because of the tentacles of American culture and society, it reaches other parts of the world through other people who come here and get Americanized, and also have the angst of using violence as a solution. And you're right, it appeals overwhelmingly and almost exclusively to not young men, I should say, to men who are the practitioners of this kind of vapid violence.
But even to that comment that just popped up, and thanks for the super chat, though I disagree with the comment, is that
extremely a lot of disagreement with that comment.
Is that my point is the men being absent from families and homes is itself part of a societal problem targeting Black people, targeting families, targeting men themselves. So part of the question is, after the initial condemning or criticism of an individual choice or pattern of behavior, is why are men being encouraged to leave the home, or why are men feeling a sense of I can't be in the home? That's it can't just be stopped at men are doing this, and then and need all of the sole focus. There is a societal inducement that encourages these patterns of behavior, as much as we may abhor them and want them changed. So that's all I'm advocating in these 20-second comments, trying to address a serious problem.
Just real quick, guys, I mean, if you go back and look at, especially if we're talking about specifically mass shootings committed by young men or et cetera, I mean, a lot of these white ones come from two-parent homes, man.
I mean, do people not forget that the Columbine killers, mama and daddy was in the house and didn't know? How did they have all those bombs?
And wasn't the last one
from? Get the hell out of here,
yes,
man.
the one from upstate New York came from a two-parent home. I saw a picture of his family.
And both of them were encouraging him to do that, right?
Yes.
Weren't the parents encouraging his use of guns and whatever the hell else? Whatever.
You may be thinking about a different case. So there's a case that is still happening right now in Michigan. I know there's so many cases, but the case in Michigan outside of Detroit of a young man named Ethan Crumbley, who had his gun gifted to him by his parents for Christmas gift, and he took his gun to school. Oh my God, I've been following the story. It's very upsetting. But anyway, long story short, he took his gun to school. He was looking up ammunition on his phone at school. A teacher saw him doing that. The administration called his parents, and his mama was like, "I'm at work. What you want me to do?" They were like, "You need to come get your son." So they were
like, "Nope."
Exactly. Parents came to the school, sat down with administrators. They're like, "We're not taking him home." Right. So they sent Ethan back to class. In 15, 20 minutes, an hour later, Ethan came and shot up, murdered a lot of his classmates, a handful of his classmates, all of whom were white. His parents have actually been charged. I can't remember the specific charges, but this is unprecedented, really, for parents to be charged in conjunction with their child who committed a mass shooting.
There were text messages too, like, "Go ahead, baby, like, go ahead, shine on, little man,"
Right. But that's, I mean, to Zanzibar's comment, to her super chat comment, thank you, Zanzibar, for your super chat support.
Zenzi. Her name is Zenzi. I'm sorry.
Oh, Zenzi Bell. I'm sorry.
Zenzi, thank you.
Zenzi Bell. I'm sorry, Zenzi Bell. God damn it, Kamal. I didn't need your correction in that moment.
You just messed up that flow. You just messed it all up. Look at you. Look at what you did.
I know her only because I know her. In fact, this has nothing to do with what you're talking about. I did her legal name change, and so that's why it just.
Okay.
My bad.
All
Sorry.
right. Okay.
He's like, "Get it right. I did all the paperwork. I had to type it and write it. You gotta say it right."
But at the end of the day, everything we are talking about, every single thing we are talking about is really the foundation for why we just need a revolution. We want to do everything else. We want to do everything else other than do the revolution. It's like that is the only thing. This society was born sick. It was founded on sickness and depravity. It was founded on white male, white supremacist violence. It was founded on white female a complicity in that violence. I mean, this society is sick. It is depraved and rotten to the core. It cannot be reformed. It can't be fixed. There are no laws it can't be fixed. This society needs to be replaced with a people-centered, human rights focused society. There is no other way to fix any of this.
In the streets right now is the ear doctor about to bring up the human-centric movement.
Going in the streets.
Look at him.
Hey, you see how I feel when I mispronounce stuff and I got my flow going, and then y'all like, "Oh, you mispronounced it." See, I'm just saying.
Sorry.
Hey,
I'm so sorry.
And we got to also stop acting like this whole America thing was an experiment from the beginning. You know what I mean? They put this together for society to be what it is. I mean, that's what it is. So right now we're gonna do a quick. I'm in the streets. We're gonna do a quick break, and I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of hip hop news. So let's get it.
Remix on the show, Black Power Media. Let's go.
What's good, everybody? What's good, everybody? Came to give you all a quick update on some hip hop news, real quick. Let's start off with some good news. Sometimes we need that right there. First thing I want to talk about is they got Lupe Fiasco. That's right, the rapper from Chicago, Illinois. He will be teaching a rap hip hop class at MIT. That's right. He will be teaching at MIT. The Grammy Award-winning rapper is selected to take part in the MIT's MLK Visiting Professor Program. So big up to Lupe Fiasco. Got a bunch of rappers actually going to colleges and teaching. Ludacris just got his degree from Georgia State recently. All right, what else are we gonna talk about? Let's talk about craziness. How about we got this new rapper right here? Bishop Nehru tries heroin in the video that he's called Heroin Addict. What people do for a cloud. Boy, I tell you, these kids are crazy. All right, next, let's talk about what's going on. We got another rapper caught up just like Young Thug and Gunna on the RICO law. Speaking of them, they took it looking at Gunna as one of the leaders also of the gang, and they are not trying to get him out also. But right now, we got this Brooklyn drill rapper, D-Thang, and 22 others that just got indicted on 65 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, gun possession, and attempted I can't see that last word back there, but yeah, so another RICO charge coming down. So these rappers better start watching out what they saying, because they are listening. And last but not least, to end it off on some good news, hey, Versus is back tomorrow night with 8-Ball MJG versus UGK, the Battle of the South. That's right, tomorrow Versus. Hopefully this one will be free, because the last one they did with Onyx and Cypress Hill wasn't, and nobody watched it. So, hey, I'm all down for this one, so bring it on. And that is your hip-hop news for the day right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's get back to our hosts.
I'm about to watch 0 seconds of this Versus too.
Oh, haters.
Zero.
You hear the haters. You hear the haters coming through. Dirty South,
Yeah.
where you at? Come on, stand
Right
up.
here.
8-Ball, MJG, Big Ball, and G versus Bun B, and I guess the ghost of Pimp C. I don't know how
Right.
this is going to work. I don't know how
Sean
this is
will love
gonna work.
it. I'm going to completely ignore it.
Oh, that's fine. Listen,
Sean
hey.
is deep on the Southern rap. I don't know who any of those people are. I don't know who
Big
any of them
Ball,
are.
NG, get it
Oh, I know who they
for
are.
sure.
Hey, I wonder
They're the
if
songs
all
I
these
turn the dial from every time they come on.
Y'all
I wonder
hear
if
the
all these
haters?
RICO
Y'all hear the
cases.
haters? Y'all hear the haters? Hear them
Yeah.
Dirty South haters? Haters.
Hey, real quick, I wonder if all these RICO cases gonna charge these rappers to stop snitching on themselves. That I'm just wondering. They about to use 7 songs in the case with Young Thug that he's talking about murdering people. These is
People
Shouldn't
won't ever
even be
shut up.
admissible,
Snitching is
Shorty.
part of the
Can't
culture.
fix
Shouldn't
stupid.
be admissible.
Yeah. As much as people
Should
talk
not
about
even be
snitching not
admissible.
being part of the culture, snitching is so much a part of the culture, because that's how they make all their cases, and they throw you into the jail. People are going to start snitching, so they know, and people want to brag about everything they done because they feel like by doing it alone it's just not enough, not unless the whole world knows about it.
Hey, before I get out of here,
things need to be true.
I gotta just say, in the words of my boy Fred Sanford, "You're big dummies."
Rest in peace.
Listen,
Red
can I
Fox.
say? Let me say something real quick. One of my favorite all-time albums of all time is Guns N' Roses' "Appetite for Destruction." Okay, and they got a song in there. No, actually, that is one of my favorite albums of all time. But I'm thinking of a different rock album, Motley Crue's "Dr. Feelgood." The title track, "Dr. Feelgood," is all
It's
about
about heroin.
a nigga selling heroin. Okay?
And to your point, Kim, Appetite for Destruction, Mr. Brownstone is about heroin.
Yeah, but
who
first and
was
foremost,
who was running Vince Neil and Tommy Lee because they was doing the heroin. Make no mistake about it. Ain't nobody charging them with crimes and bringing in Dr. Feelgood as evidence of said crimes. That's some bullshit.
Thank you,
If you
McGeegermeister.
ever read Nikki Sixx's autobiography, I think it was Nikki Sixx who wrote. I don't understand how he's still alive. Neither does he.
I don't understand how any of them are still alive.
He did die. He actually died.
Yeah, he actually eventually died. But when his book came out, it was like,
no, Nikki Sixx is alive.
No, he died, but he died, and then was
came back.
revived. He
Was he
literally
really?
died in the on.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
they
right.
talk
That's
about
right.
that. He literally died on the hospital table or in the
But
ambulance or something like that, and then they brought him back. Yeah.
That happened to Flash
they
too.
the amount of drugs and being a metalhead and going to lots of metal shows and dating a guy who was a guitar player in a punk band and going backstage and see these folks may not be doing their drugs on camera these days, but ain't nobody got nothing on rock
But
stars and metalheads
there's
and
at least
drugs.
two important differences. One, they are white men, and two, they're not on those same songs talking about killing their dealers and
Okay,
shooting the
that's
ones that
I,
that's
all right. I'll
those are
give
just
you
two
that, but
small differences. The
but
white
still,
and the murder, the murder.
I will agree, but I always have this argument when people are like, "Oh my God, these hip hop and all these drugs and the depravity." I'm like, let me tell
No.
you some of the things I have
y'all listen to
seen.
rock music? Have y'all heard any other genres of music besides rap? Because I assure you, the whites are into the drugs and violence.
No.
By the way, they do talk about both.
I survived 2 private white schools. That's how that nobody does drugs like those folks. None. Nobody comes close. Anyway, but we're not looking for white folks doing drugs. We're in search of Black power. So let's bring
Yes, we
on the
are.
hosts of that podcast to give us a little preview of what's coming up this week. Let's get to it. LBS in the building. You already know what it is. Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media. And we're joined, of course, by Rasheem and Lawrence of the In Search for Black Power podcast from LBS, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. Good morning to you both and welcome.
Good morning, good people.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
What is going on? First of all, so thanks. Rasheem, it's good to see you. Appreciate you coming through. Nice to virtually meet you. I've become a big fan through the podcast, and I know BPM is enjoying your presence here as well. So I just wanted to extend that particular greetings and then ask you all, what's going on? What's the latest? You want to recap last week, preview this week? What's happening?
Yeah, so this week, our episode premieres on Black Power Media at noon, and the topic is lies, white lies, and statistics, how statistics are used as a tool of white power. So just even listening to the conversation you all been having this morning, there's so many statistics that get thrown around about violence in our community that oftentimes are used to justify more policing that don't quite make any sense. So people use the possibility of mass shootings in schools to justify more police in schools, when we know that our young people do have an issue of violence in schools, but a lot of it is like outside of schools, going to and from school. So you could invest in, as they're doing in Newark, community organizations, not police, to walk children to the bus stop. But we don't do that. We put more cops and metal detectors in schools where that isn't the biggest part of the actual violence. So
but I thought the numbers were pretty clear, Lawrence. Black people have all of the guns and all of the drugs.
Right.
All
obviously. Yeah. Obviously, we have these stories that we tell. Now we have this data-driven logic that's, being used to say, well, it's subjective, it's clear, like this is where the problem is. But so often, especially when it comes to education, a lot of what we talked about in the talk was actually these statistics that get tossed around Black folks in education that feel true, that we use to basically blame ourselves, but don't actually have the context. So Rasheem, if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no problem at all. I mean, I feel like you did an excellent summary, but I feel like it's largely the conversation is around a book that we reviewed and how statistics are just basically used wrong. It's no BS, so it's no bad stats. And what we do is explore a lot of the stats. And this particular book focuses on Black youth, college dropout rate, things like school to prison pipeline, that whole conversation, and the ways in which we take those numbers to sometimes either prove a particular case or disprove something else. So that's in general largely what the conversation is about. Sometimes we use those stats, if I could be completely honest, to get the grant, right? Or to get our information, our proposal approved so that we can write whatever the research is, and then get tenure or get whatever we need, because we have to identify a problem. And there's no shortage of people providing stats for us to use to pathologize Black people. So that's one of the things that we kind of unpack and talk about ways of bringing not only bringing more compassion to statistical analysis and methodology, but just like more of a full encompassing story. So much of when we look at stats, it's like ahistorical, acontextual, and we're comparing two things that really should not be compared in the conversation. Yeah.
So, well, what other issues related to bad stats are you all covering? Are there any in particular that like is a highlighted example, whether it's again?
Yeah, I'll give an example. So the example the book gives is that the oftentimes thought around statistics is there are more Black people, Black men in prison than there are in college, right? So this is an example that gets thrown around, basically saying we do it to ourselves. Black people got to rise up and overcome. And it's not true. Statistically, that only counts people in 4-year undergraduate universities. It excludes people in community college, technical training programs. And also it's based upon faulty incarceration data. It's like 20 years old. But in the book, the researcher actually confronts the nonprofit that gives the statistic and being like, you're wrong. And they refuse to walk it back. And they refuse to walk it back because it's a good talking point for them to go to their funders, for them to go to, getting interviews on NPR. So even though he statistically proves it's wrong, the white-led nonprofit refuses to walk it back because it's a good talking point for their fundraising and their grant making, or them receiving grants. And that's the game that I think we get trapped in.
What's her name? What is her name? The sister, she kind of became prominent, but her first book blew that stat out of the water back in the 90s. That claim is still being made. I thought that was destroyed decades ago about the college.
It's still being made, and Justice Policy Institute, JPI, is one of the institutions that makes it. And it's funny because we've actually at LBS we've had some run-ins with them, and they've had similarly a flawed statistical methodology that they were using to hype up a program they wanted to bring to Maryland that we had to check them on. So if you want more details on that, and again, our personal experience dealing with the ways in which bad stats and data get used to basically whitewash seemingly oftentimes social justice policy, listen to the episode. I don't have time to go into all of it here, but that's the thing, is that as much as these people claim to be data driven, the whole point of the episode is that you kind of make up whatever you need the data to be to fit the box in your brain that you feel is true. So if you feel like we do it to ourselves, you'll find statistics that justifies that. If you feel like we need, the benevolence of white institutions to come in and save us, you'll find statistics justify that. And we get trapped into cherry picking the data points that we feel makes our argument for us. And we talk about, and Rashim, if you could talk a little bit about this, just about, some basic statistical methodology things that, just as you hear statistics, trying to develop our BS detector. What questions do we ask when we hear these bad stats being used to suck us into this game?
Sorry, Rashim, just real quick, just to clarify, I was talking about Farai Chideya and Don't Believe the Hype, that book from decades ago. She exploded that fact or that stat, but then as M. Bold is pointing out, she also apparently peddles the myth of buying power. So nobody's perfect though, but she got it. Sorry.
Right. So, I mean, the thing about, I feel like research is we have so many tools that are already readily available to us within our culture, right? So whether it's using a Du Boisian style, community participatory research style, whether it is using more qualitative data, not exclusively, but just like incorporating that to provide a larger context, or largely what is the question that we're asking, right? When we talk about proficiency, Black male proficiency versus white male proficiency, one of the things that Tolson asks in the book is, why are we making this comparison out externally? Why aren't we doing more within group, let's say racial comparison of Black males from, I heard you talking earlier, from 2-parent homes versus from single parent homes, or from this part of the SES spectrum, and then from another part of the SES spectrum. So I think it's so largely in our approach, and this is why research matters so much, because it's like what we identify as the problem is going to determine how we decide what is the solution, who gets to work on what the potential solution is. And it'll also change and shape the conversation. One of the things that gets scary, though, is sometimes our own kinfolk are perpetuating some of those things to use and leverage them, because we have to have a problem. We have to have a issue statement in order to move forward. So I think that really just taking a holistic approach to research and looking at some of the African-centered elders around how did they get to the bottom of whatever question they were asking.
I like what Lawrence said a couple of minutes ago about, when we look at these statistics, and this is always something that I have wondered, when we see these statistics about us and our quote unquote pathology, because that's always why these statistics are used and presented to us to show us how terrible and awful we are and how much we need fixing. And, like you all are saying, how some organization or some nonprofit or some politician can get money to fix us, right?
Right.
What the thing you said, Lawrence, was the thing I always ask myself, like when we're presented with this information, what questions are we asking about what these statistics really say compared to just like what we see in our like everyday lives? Like the thing about, all the violence in our neighborhoods, it's the statistics are presented as if, folks, it's like the OK Corral in every Black neighborhood, everywhere, all day, every day. And I'm not saying that there are not issues of violence. There are, but there is not like this, a wild, wild west shootout kind of situation that the statistics are always used to present. So how do you see just the way statistics have been used in conditioning us not to question the very statistics that are used against us?
Yeah. I mean, when you have a narrative and it feels true, you toss a few numbers on it, and then that makes it harder to challenge. Right. So if you I just watched a little bit of Menace to Society yesterday. And I mean, my goodness, when you see stuff like that, it's like, well, it has to be true. But then you start to actually deconstruct the data, and it's like, oh, wait, we've been in a 30-year violence decline. Violence has been declining to some of the lowest points in recent history, and it's just rebounding from that historic low. Right. So then you look at that, and then you look at a ton of the violence in this country is isolated to like 7 or 8 cities. So then it's like this whole narrative, Black people live everywhere. But it's in like these 8 to 10 cities that have concentrated poverty and concentrated hyper arrest with the war on drugs, that have hollowed out community institutions. So then if you understand that, it's like, oh, rebuild the community institutions. That's a solution to the violence. But because we don't, I think one thing that maybe can be helpful is like, look at the data, then look at what they're claiming is the cause of the data and figure out what that actually makes sense. Because if the data is there's violence, then the oftentimes unspoken causal claim is there's something wrong with Black people. That's a culture of poverty. That's a culture of pathology. And it's, wait, there are poor Black people all over the country who aren't shooting each other. So that can't be the solution. I'm in Mississippi right now, and it's like Mississippi has its problems, but there are tons of rural and even some urban communities that don't have the rates of violence that like St. Louis has. So it's like, well, St. Louis and Baltimore, they're both independent cities that struggle with perpetual underfunding because their suburbs send none of their money back to the urban core. That, to me, is a more interesting causal problem for the violence than that's just something inherently wrong with St. Louis and Baltimore.
And
so
the
you have
answer
to
is
link it
never
to
to get money to these Black communities. Yeah. The answer is never to get money to these Black.
That's never the
somehow
solution.
that never becomes the solution. And I'm sorry, my camera's my internet's been acting up. So if you guys talked about this, I'm sorry if I'm bringing it back up. But it reminds me of Brown v. Board of Education. One of the original misuses of data to suggest that, oh, look, Black kids are preferring white dolls. And so the solution to that is to integrate school, at least the anomaly say that, separate but equal. But the thrust of it was that somehow we were in some deficit because we weren't in close proximity to white people, as opposed to issues around education have more to do with funding and access to funding and training and all the rest of it that could have been poured into Black schools if they were really looking for solutions. This is from the liberal end of it, right? If they were really looking for solutions that could solve a problem, as opposed to something that fit a narrative they already have, that always at the root of our quote unquote dysfunction for them, right? What they see as a dysfunction is that we're never close enough to whiteness, i.e., like the even creating Black schools, in some ways, the ones that were created by white folks were, and then you have the same thing about indigenous school creation by white folks, was about sort of decorating us up to look more like Europeans or acting more like Europeans. And that always becomes the solution for their version of what's impacting us as a people, not white supremacy, not the stealing or hoarding of resources, not the impoverishment which comes with a society that's basically a Black society that's basically occupied by white folks. None of that gets dealt with, but it's always some other reason as to what has to be dealt with. Yeah.
I feel like the solution will never be give money to Black people, right? Or that's never going to be anyone's answer that anyone comes to. It's never going to be to fund programming, even if the programming works. I have seen situations, particularly in nonprofit environments, where folks will be sent out to study a program within a Black community that is Black led and run, to get the information so that they could then model their program off of it. And then the organization the white led organization has a better chance of getting the resources and the funds to be able to carry out that program from the information that they got from the folks who are doing the work and who have been doing the work, and the work is actually working. So I don't think that'll be something that will ever be considered as part of the solution.
Yes, the nonprofit version of what they did with the Juneteenth ice cream.
Yeah.
And then they'll give you a statistic, and it's like, they love the great values Juneteenth ice cream. Look, it's data, it's objective.
It's the freedom,
and that's how they play the game.
What about the statistics as it pertains to policing, especially policing in our communities? Because there's always a double-digit rise in so-called violent crime and murders and sex assaults. But conversely, the numbers that I never hear reported, particularly out of so-called mainstream news outlets, is actually the number or percentage of these crimes that are actually solved by police, right? So I'm not sure. I think the Baltimore police homicide clearance rate is somewhere in the abysmal, maybe 30%, 20%.
It varies, 30s and 40s. But absolutely. Right. I mean, that's a point that we've been making. Yeah, absolutely.
In the ways that those statistics are used to say, hey, we've had this increase of murders, we've had this increase of gun violence, we need more billions of dollars, but that money never translates into actually these crimes being solved mostly.
It's one of those things where statistics don't tell you how organizational power works and where organizational focus is. So you can just talk about money, but it doesn't guarantee that the stuff that actually, to the extent police do anything, it's get the small percentage of people who are real threats to the community, make cases to put them in jail. They don't know how to do that. And giving them money doesn't help them do that. You need a community trust to cultivate confidential informants. You need witness protection to be able to protect those folks if they do want to testify against a very small percentage of people who are driving the violence. But giving more money to the cops usually goes to more cops working the beat, like rank and file, police union cops, that they don't want to do that. They don't want to give money to the detectives. They don't want to give money to the crime labs, because those are the people who, are like they call them desk jockeys. Those aren't the real cops working the beat. So even if you give more money to the cops to strengthen the union, it's the rank and file folks who want to take money away from the crime lab, the detectives, internal affairs, the stuff that can actually help the cops do the one thing they're supposed to do, which is take the small percentage of people who are threats to the community and help make cases against them. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't understand how power and focus flow when you just talk about money. So the giving of money to cops has nothing to do with their actual clearance rate, which is the only thing that could potentially deter violence in our community. In fact, giving more money to cops strengthens people in the union who are oftentimes the hardest core drug warriors who are going to work against those people in the police department who want to do that stuff to increase the clearance rate. So yeah, I mean, that's the stuff you miss when you just take an abstract number and take that as the statistic versus understanding how that number works in the context of systems.
I just wanted to show very quickly my favorite reminder of how close Black people are ever really meant to get to the money. And this is just Jamie Dimon taking the knee after George Floyd in front of his JP Morgan vaults. That's always my favorite. That's it.
This is so ridiculous.
You look at the vault. You can see him take a knee in front of the vault, but you're not getting nowhere near any of that
pandering though.
Just my favorite.
And the gentrification, the buying up of Black real estate that causes all this communal disruption, all that is ignored. You know, you get that top line number of, you know, investing in a few Black businesses here or there, and it just whitewashes all the structural instability produced by how the market functions. So they'll give you that stat of like, you know, a 10 million put into Black businesses and ignores 10,000 Black families evicted because you bought up all the real estate in these different neighborhoods.
Here's one thing that I want to make sure that we are at minimum left with when we are looking at stats, right? Just questions to investigate if you're given a statistic or if you're given an article or of some sort. One, if you can identify the source of who funded that research, that's always a good start. Who's funding this research and what? And all research is political, believe that. And then what's their political leaning, right? So that's one thing. What the second one is, what questions are they asking and how are they asking those questions? What methods are they using to ask those questions? And who are they asking those questions of? So whether they end up doing something that is qualitative or quantitative, which I recommend both, but if they're doing something that is qualitative or quantitative, what questions are they asking? Another question that I would pose is, who does this information benefit and what narrative does it perpetuate? Those are just like a few things to just start at the baseline. Who's funding it? What's their political leaning? What is the question that they're asking? Who are they actually asking the question of? Like, who do they consider knowledgeable on this particular topic as they're exploring the question and investigating it? What work that has already been done on this that they might be ignoring, intentionally excluding, and what work that they decide that they will include? And that kind of gives you in terms of the analysis, like a baseline of like how to unpack some of these stats, especially if they give you a smaller stat, and then you can go and find something like a bigger stat to like compare that to make sense of it. But those are some of the questions just as a baseline to avoid coming into contact or being persuaded by BS, by bad stats.
Right on. We appreciate you, Rasheem Lawrence. We look forward to the show dropping later on today. And we encourage everybody to come back around at 12 o'clock and check it out. Thank you very much for your work. And we'll catch you next week. And keep it up. Appreciate you. Leaders of a beautiful struggle in search of Black power.
Thank you.
Always, anytime. Anytime. All right, back in just a minute right here at the Remix.
All right, we have returned. What did y'all do with Jared? What'd you do with Jahar?
We had to put him on timeout. He's in timeout. It's timeout time. It's timeout time. But that's cool because look what we got. Look what we got.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Peaches and Herb. Ashford and Simpson.
we are 10 viewers away from Kamau taking off his shirt.
Hey, come on. Hey, I'm about to start watching on my phone. Hold on. Let's get them numbers up. Let's get them numbers up.
I never really call that. He might be 1,000. It might have to, you know what I'm saying? After that, might be up to 1,000.
What you got on, Kamau? What you got on, a button down?
I got a little button down on. You know, I got a little tee. I can do all that. All that can go. All I can go.
All right, come on.
You keep moving the goalposts with this.
No, I said you're gonna get 1,000 once I took it. I didn't say I had to reach it. You're gonna get 1,000. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right. See.
Next 13 next 13 that come in, they'll get private photos, whatever they need.
What? He's trying to
Wait a minute.
The Dropbox drop.
What is it?
Kamal's got a gig, y'all. A whole gig. Listen, I'm telling on myself right now. Let me shut up real quick, y'all. We are at 290. Am I reading that correctly?
294.
Let's rock. So that means Ear Doctor owe us a little something. Ear Doctor gonna do a little something for us at the end of this hour.
That's right.
Thank you all remixers for your support. Please give us a thumbs up, give us a like on today's show. And if you're not already subscribed to Black Power Media, are you waiting for something, an invitation? Well, let this be your invitation. Please subscribe to the channel. Go to blackpowermedia.org. Pick up some of your swag. As Kalanji told us yesterday, Sister May has dropped a bunch of colors. New colors on the t-shirts for BPM. And of course, we got our mugs. Look at Kamal. Vanna Black out here. Let's go, Kamal. Show it all off.
Ooh.
Good.
Vanna Light. That's what it
Vanna
is.
Light.
Vanna Light.
You know what?
Yes.
I'm not going to take the abuse. I'm not going to take the abuse.
The anti-melanism is.
You know what I'm saying? It's coming strong. It's coming strong.
It's rampant.
No reason for all that. No reason for all that.
But we appreciate you guys' support so much. Excellent interview there, Jarrod, with the LBS folks.
Great.
And that's very valuable for us as journalists as well, to be very critical and discerning about the numbers of which we are reporting. So yes, excellent.
Right on.
Topic
and discerning also in those beats is the Ear Doctor, who's ready to come on back here and discern for us.
We gonna do a quick make it or break it. Got another artist sent in some music, and we're gonna see if y'all like it or not. One thing I wanted to add to the gun conversation. I think it's also part due to video games. One of my favorite ones is Call of Duty, and then you also got another one where I think it's GTA, where you just go grab people out of their cars, go shoot and kill as much as you can. So I would say a lot of those games and stuff is making us be like, oh, we can do this in real life. But
so I will share quickly. Can I share real quick? At the beginning of the pandemic, I decided to take advantage of that moment and try out a game I had never really played before, which is Grand Theft Auto. I had heard students talk about it for years, read articles about it, downloaded the joint, got on the headset, and just like in that episode of Atlanta, one of the first things I heard on the headset is it's a whole bunch of N-words and B's and indiscriminate uses of language and all types of stuff going on. I was like, I'm too old. I'm too innocent. I'm too pure. I got to leave. So in addition to the game, as you're talking about, Ear Doctor, which is just all about pure, unadulterated violence. Like if you just want a cathartic moment, but then when you put on the headset and actually listen to who's out there, these children, from all over the world in multiple languages,
what you
but
just
the one
said.
word you can always hear, nigga. You don't know anything else they're saying, but people getting called N's and B's all over the place. And just like in that show and on Atlanta, I was on a multiple player mission. This white boy is in there from Scotland, a kid, and these brothers are over here from wherever they're from, super thugging it out, and they start getting into it with each other. And I was like, I got to go. I was like, exit the mission. I was like, it's too much. Anyway, so I'm with you on that. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much.
Jared, who has been in the Navy and to Iraq, says GTA.
Too much for him. He was in the actual, literal, real life military.
Listen,
and he couldn't handle some GTA.
The game is way more violent.
For real, because think about it.
Experience.
For real, Jared, how
often
do you really get to pick up a gun and go shoot it when you in the military? People.
Again, no, to be fair, let me just be clear. I always like to be clear about this. I was not a grunt. I was not on the ground. I was not infantry. They do pick up guns, get shot at, and do shooting. I was a glorified janitor on an aircraft
What matter?
carrier.
You were
So
still there.
So
You
what?
were
You
still
was
I'm
there.
just
Right,
telling
to
you,
tell
but
people.
there's
But
levels.
see,
That's
That
the
boy
what
smart.
thing.
That boy
what you
smart.
said about people, kids from all over the world being on those games, if these kids from all over the world are subjected to the same video game violence, how come they ain't shooting up their schools like
That's
folks
the
are
thing.
over here?
That's the thing.
So I
That's
don't
the
buy
thing.
it's the video games. I don't
I
buy
think
it.
that
put a
they do
little
have
bit.
it. But again, to the point, and I think actually Michael Moore in Bowling for Columbine had a pretty good answer for all this explanation, and which is rooted in the colonial white supremacist enslavement history of the United States, that and its particular relationship to guns and violence. So yes, I don't think that these video games help anything, but what they do, just like any other media environment, is they add to the social antagonisms that already exist. So if you're already predisposed as a society to this level of hatred and violence, that it could add or be part of the culminating tipping points.
And the access. And the access.
Whereas in other societies, there are other ways for those tendencies to be,
I mean, really quick, like there was some, I forgot where this was. It might have been in Japan or whatever, but there was somebody that they had a crazed moment and they went out with like a knife. And so, it was like, what's the difference between I'm crazy with a knife and I'm crazy with an AK? Right. Yeah. So, and so people act like that's not a real distinction, but that's a huge distinction. Whatever internal anger I have, just again, focusing on someone who's for the most part, a lone actor or whatever however they want to describe it. If I have access to something that allows me to express that and just wipe out 10, 15, 20, 25 people at a pop, that's a lot different than if I have that anger. And the most I can do is walk out with a hammer. You're going to get put down before you do that much damage. And I think that level matters, right? That matters. That matters to the people who are going home now or going to schools these days. And like this, like I took my child to school and I was like, they're gone 20 times over. So that shit matters to me.
Yeah. And Call of Duty teaches you every gun from a pistol all the way up to bazooka. You can learn about recoils, scopes, everything, all types of different guns. So it's out there. Let's go ahead and rock out real quick on this quick break. See if y'all feeling this next artist or not. All right, let's get it.
No,
right, let's go.
Hate him.
Already?
What? Already?
Wow.
Good God.
Black Power Media.
All right. All right, so we're going to do it real quick, y'all. We're going to do it real quick because I know we got some more stories and stuff to get to. Check this out. This right here is from a brother called Sir Gandhi. As you can see, he has sent in other songs, but he's the one person that's sending in music for us to judge. So here it is. This one right here is called Hear Me Out. Check it out.
Know your position, purpose and rules. Cultivate the mind and fill up the soul. Unwrap the gift of life, family behold. Hold it close, hear me out, folks. Know your position, purpose and rules. Cultivate the mind and fill up the soul. Unwrap the gift of life, family behold. Hold it close. Holding on by that thread, trying to balance out my sunken head. Stress on my mind, whole life a mess. Yeah, I'm really trying, but it's not my best. Now I'm looking around for the time to check if I done lived on my dreams yet. But the reality, I feel delusional. Trying to chase this rainbow pie to go when all I keep finding is bills and broke my boat badly. Staying afloat, my girl loved me, but she was miserable cause she was sick and tired of this pitiful ass existence that I was living, bro, with me working jobs and I went away from home when I could be musically in my zone, doing what I love, penning poems. Hear me out, folks. Know your position, purpose and role. Cultivate the mind and fill up the soul. Unwrap the gift of life, family behold. Hold it close, hit me out, folks. Know your position, purpose and role. Cultivate the mind and fill up the soul. Unwrap the gift of life, family behold. Hold.
All right, there you have it right there. That's Sir Gandhi. So we rocking with it or we not? That's what it is. Let's get back to our remix morning host. Let me
know
start
about Devin the Dude, I Manifesto. Shout out to Devin the Dude.
Yeah. I don't know about the singing part, but you know the lyrics is cool.
I think
Jackie.
Yeah, go ahead, come out.
I was just going to say quickly, I wasn't that mad at it, but I see Jackie holding her mouth, which means, yes.
It was not my favorite thing to hear this morning.
Jackie, Jesus. Are you at a loss for words, darling? What's happening?
I gotta get some Black Rock on here for Jackie because she is not.
I mean the lyrics. I dig the lyrics.
Yeah.
It was
the flow.
Let me see.
Really very.
Yeah, Jared sips his coffee.
Okay. No, I was waiting. I have so I think if that was my man in them, I would say my man. Like I think you got to get somebody else to sing the hook.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know what something needs to be done with the hook. It didn't fit with the beat, and I don't know something melodically. I don't know what it was. I don't know. Yeah. But aesthetically, I like the whole thing. The babies, the crew.
That was nice.
The slow motion smoking. You always gotta like that kind of stuff. Hook. You know, you got the Asian comrade right there. You know what I mean? You got the it's like that. I like all that. And the content of the verses, I like that too. But a little bit with the hook was a little off-putting, especially at the beginning of the song. Yeah.
Hey, that's the Sir Gandhi for the day. That's a remix, right?
But I appreciate that though. Thanks for sending in the music and keep it up. You know what I mean? And you know,
good on the lyrics.
Something, Kim? I didn't hear you.
Well, my it was cool.
You're a doctor.
It was cool. I mean, my general critique about a song like that, and really the state of music, of urban music in particular, we've just accepted that people who can't sing are free to sing, and I don't understand why that is. And I blame, in the rap genre, I blame Pharrell and Nelly for starting that off, in the sense that, you know,
Bismarck. You don't blame Disney?
I thought it was Drake.
I thought it was Bismarck.
But see, Bismarck was.
But he knew what he was
come
doing.
off as a singer.
He wasn't trying to come off as serious.
He knew what he was doing. Yeah.
That's true.
And you know, Pharrell, beautiful. I mean, enough.
It's
enough.
It wasn't.
It
still isn't.
Singing is not it. But that has been accepted. I feel as though the taste and the ears of younger listeners have not been curated. So I feel as though we have a whole generation, possibly two, who literally cannot make distinctions between who is a good singer and who is a bad singer. Anybody who opens their mouth and let notes come out is just allowed to sing. And I disagree. I disagree with that vehemently. Like, no, let actual singers sing. Just because you have the ability to have notes come out of your throat does not make you a singer.
And I mean, auto-tune also just ruined y'all. Whoever auto-tune should
even Jay-Z couldn't kill it.
Just
even he couldn't kill auto-tune. It was like, damn, if Jay-Z can't stop something, then it's just, it's a wrap. Anyway, pun intended.
I need singers. Where are the singers at? Where are all the Ruben Studdards, the Shirley Murdochs?
So
Like,
you
where y'all at? But I know they still out here. I know they out here. But
now here's where I get into my conspiracy bag. We were on the way to my baby girl's soccer game, and Teddy Pendergrass came up, and I went into. She had to not only you talk about interrupting movies. I interrupted Teddy to go into a whole thing about why your generation don't hear voices like this anymore. Where are the baritones and the basses and the turn them off in the voice? And I was like, it's all auto-tuned and corrected to another pitch. And then, like Big Daddy Kane said on Math Hoffa Show the other day, how come everybody's taking little this, baby that, when in our generation everything was Big Daddy Kane, Big Pun, Biggie Smalls? Like, what happened? Anyway.
That's an interesting observation there, Jared. Interesting observation. I don't know. But again, I'm gonna hold that comment. Never mind.
Okay. Kim, you did. I would love for you not to hold it, but you
I blame the parents. I blame the parents. I blame the parents. I blame the parents. Y'all just let these children listen to whatever the fuck they want to listen to. You're not giving them the foundations of black music, of R&B, of blues, of rap. Y'all not doing it. Y'all let these children just listen to whatever the fuck they want to listen to, and all this terrible shit the children think is the greatest shit in the world. I seen something on Twitter. Somebody said who has had a greater five album run than Kanye West, and somebody thankfully came back to the replies and listed Stevie Wonder, Music of My Mind, Inner Visions, Songs in the Key of Life. Give it to them. Like, yo, what the fuck? I blame the parents. What are y'all playing for these children? Y'all are not cultivating tastes of music in these children's ears, and I blame the parents. I blame you.
This is where black parents have failed. This is where y'all have failed.
There's no statistical analysis failure here. This
in conveying the culture to this is where y'all failed. And at this point, I'm not culpable because I ain't got no kids, so I can talk about y'all. I see what y'all doing or not doing. Shame on you. Picking up these terrible versus battles.
Who is this white boy today comparing to Stevie Wonder? I saw this on Twitter too. Jack Harlow or somebody. There was somebody.
Stop that.
They were like, they said some white boy was the Stevie Wonder of this generation. And they got dragged.
No.
Listen, I haven't heard one song, one note, one nothing, and I will never accept that. I don't care.
I don't care how good he sound. He ain't the Stevie Wonder or nothing. He is not.
I was like,
nada.
what?
Nah. Nerd.
I gotta go and do my real job, y'all.
Okay, we gotta go.
Yes, I do. I gotta go.
Thank you for moonlighting with us a little bit.
Glad that y'all could join us. I mean, glad to be here with you guys. Me and Jackie have to go to do our show. Me, Jackie, and Sean for a little bit. Sean might pop on. You know, the voice.
Might hop on.
Oh, yeah.
You mean the other voice, Kamal?
I'm actually the voice. See, I'm the Teddy Pendergrass generation. Sean is
Harold Melvin.
Harold Melvin.
Oh, come on. Come on with the truth.
That don't drag him on screen. Nothing will. Nothing will.
He called you Harold Melvin, son.
So hopefully I'm working on a show talking about the elections in Colombia, upcoming elections in Colombia, extremely important elections in Colombia. I'm hoping to do that maybe on Saturday, and my Friday show, I don't know what that's going to be yet. Might be trying to talk about some medical stuff. I'm going to try to get one of the Cuban doctors on. I don't know, to talk about some Cuban medical advancement and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully one of the sisters who has gone through the Elam medical school, the Cuban medical school, I met her in Cuba. And so I'm kind of working on that. Working on trying to get John Parker, a comrade who went to Ukraine and reported on Ukraine. A lot of stuff I'm working on, hopefully getting this stuff up in the next couple of weeks. But God willing, the creek don't rise. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Oh, good. That's my question. Are you on tomorrow? That's basically all I want to know.
Should be on tomorrow. Yep.
Because I want you to please talk about Biden lifting the sanctions on Venezuela and what that means and what it doesn't mean.
Oil.
Hold that for tomorrow.
Oil. That's it. Biden is in between a rock and a hard place with what he did in Ukraine, and now he has to go
Russia,
crawling with his hat in his hand to Venezuela, and Nicolas Maduro is sitting back like the big dog. That's right, nigga. Yes, lift them sanctions.
He need to hit him. He need to hit him with that fat Joe. The price yesterday is not the price today.
Right. Hey, listen, it's President Maduro, motherfucker. President Maduro, get the name right.
President Maduro,
El Presidente,
Bama.
out this
You
bitch.
need to hit him with some other stuff. El Presidente, El Jefe, El Rey. Hit him with all that stuff. Call my name right, Bama.
And I ain't mad at him. He my
shout out to Dev hit Jack Harlow and hit Jack Harlow with the Spanish Basura Blanca.
I'll see y'all tomorrow, fam.
Bye, Jackie. Peace out, Jackie.
Bye, Jackie.
All right.
Oh my goodness. Where are we at time wise?
We only got 9 minutes. We got 9 minutes.
We got time for this good news you put in the chat, Kim.
Skirt. Hold on. We don't got 9 minutes, Kamal, because Ear Doctor's gonna come on at 9:58 and rock us out for 2 minutes.
He should come off at 9. He's been giving them short outros. He needs to do a little set. We reached 300.
Woo!
We had 250 yesterday, and on Thursday he gave us no set, and yesterday he gave us a puny set. So my man needs to come on and rock out for a few minutes or something like that. Even if we got to cut it for copyright purposes or something, he needs to come on and rock that.
So what time should we put a pin in our conversation?
We got 4 minutes.
We got 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
I can do this story, Jared, but there's a story. Maybe I'll say that story for tomorrow. Did y'all hear about the alleged assassination plot against W. Bush?
No.
By an Iraqi national who allegedly used to be part of Iraqi intelligence. Nigga. Nigga. He was scoping his house and everything, dog. Y'all want to talk about that?
Texas? Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah,
but you guys didn't hear about this.
No, I didn't hear about it. And I hope he was more accurate than whoever threw the shoe at old boy in that press conference.
He wasn't.
You got to do better than that.
He didn't get it.
He's definitely incarcerated at the moment. Yes, but so anyway, I should have pulled up the article, but I think I know enough about to tell you. So allegedly, an Iraqi national has been arrested for apparently trying to plot an assassination attempt against George W. Bush. And when I tell you, I can appreciate motherfuckers carrying old beefs, like carry that beef, my guy. That beef is decades in the making. I mean, I can understand why my man's felt a certain way, but apparently the Iraqi national was here legally and let the FBI tell it. And again, some of these details have to be weighted against the source, right? So according to federal sources, he was allegedly former Iraqi intelligence, had been meeting with other members or former members of ISIS. He maybe had been an ISIS secretary. Again, I am inclined to disbelieve a lot of the propaganda, but apparently it was enough for them to take him seriously. The feds say that he had driven past the president's gated community in and around the Dallas area, taking pictures, taking video. My guy was apparently serious about this, apparently very serious about this. And I just want to say, you know, like the guy who threw the shoe at W. Bush, who deserved to have them shoes thrown at him. For peoples whose countries get bombed and decimated by American military, please don't think that these people are not carrying beef. They are carrying beef. Mm-hmm. They are carrying righteous, legitimate beef. And I note whom his target was, and I think might have been the right target. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, and then the dude gets up on TV the other day and says, you know, makes his little gaffe about, you know, bombing Iraq. I mean Ukraine. We'll bomb them too. You know, so I mean, you know. And look, I hold grudges. Somebody looked at me wrong 20 years ago. I still remember that. So I mean, I'm like, if you know, I can.
You might get the house sold out. You might get. Jab might be coming around the block like the fourth time. Be like, I know where you live.
I mean, so I'm just saying. So, like, but to Kim's point, you lead bombing and assassination missions, and I mean, again, my ship alone, they painted it on the wall, dropped hundreds of thousands of tons from one ship. Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine the damage that was caused, and why people would never forget it. Damn sure not forgive that stuff either.
And they're tight around that neighborhood that Bush is in. I think somebody, like a family member of ours who lives in Dallas, was like, you can't slow down, you know what I mean? Or they definitely profile you left and right in that neighborhood. So if you drive by more than once, I am not shocked that they pulled people over and all that kind of stuff. And usually,
and they know how guilty they are. That's why Kissinger won't leave the country, right? And I mean, like all that kind of stuff.
Bush
like they know everybody's.
What I understand.
Bush, everybody's waiting on him. Come on, take that little vacation, bro. Come on.
Yep.
It's like. Nah, man. I mean, it's terrible. So,
but think about all the elected officials or democratically elected leaders or even just social movement leaders. I mean, literally, how much blood does the U.S. have on its hands? Like, relative to the amount of fuckery this country has dispensed globally, our leaders in particularly have never or very rarely or seldom felt those effects of that fuckery themselves.
No, you can say never. Just say never. They've never.
Never.
I was going to say when
never gotten chastised. Oh, sorry. You finish.
Oh, no, I was just going to say when Hinckley attempted to assassinate Reagan, I don't think that was political, right? But that's the last time an American president has caught a bullet, right?
Yeah.
Well, the late great John Judge, I gotta say, said that was a political beef between the Bush-led wing of the ruling elite and the Reagan-led wing of the ruling elite that were not on the same team. But that's another
speculation. Speculation.
Well, let's invite Hinckley on to talk about it since Hinckley's out of jail.
You know what? We should. You know what? What's John doing these days?
Hinckley on and ask him.
What is John doing these days?
It's like, so was it Joey,
can I tell you guys
or was it what led you?
Right. But do you know who I really want to talk to, who I think is alive still? And unfortunately, his name escapes me, but I think he lives in the state of Maryland. Do you guys remember when George Wallace got shot when he was running for president?
Yeah.
George Wallace got shot. Alive? No, the person who shot him, I think, is still alive.
No, I knew he wasn't. The person who shot him is still. That's what I mean. That was like 1960 or 72 latest.
He was young. He was in his 20s when he did it. I looked him up online because it happened in Maryland. Shout out to Laurel, Maryland. We bang racists in Maryland, shorty. That's where George Wallace caught that bullet, right at Laurel Shopping Center. Don't fuck with us, chief. The radical whites will come out and light your ass up full of bullets. Don't do it, my guy. But they sent him. He did his time up in Cumberland.
Turning it down.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I not supposed to say that? My bad. Y'all still
Laurel is where I learned the word cracker. My mother, from my mother, she was like, the crackers in Laurel are a problem. That's straight truth. As a child, that's what I was like, cracker. I was like, and from you, I was like, wait a minute.
Jared, as many times as white people have called me a nigga, it has happened the most in Laurel. Dog. It has happened the most times in Laurel. But anyway, he did his time up in Cumberland. And when I looked him up, he was still living in Cumberland. And I just always thought, like, I would love to talk to this man who shot George Wallace talking that cracker shit. I want to know the story.
All right, there it is. Let's go, remixers. Let's bring Ear Doctor up to give us that closing mix, and let's reach out to the Hinkleys and the whoever that Laurel shooter is, and let's get them on here. Let's go, Ear Doctor.
Yo, next week we gotta hit 300 for a mix.
No, let's make it 275. We just hit 300 the first time.
There are some things in our society, some things in our world, which I'm proud to be maladjusted. Modern psychology has a word that is probably used more than any other word in psychology, maladjustment. I must honestly say to you that I never intend to adjust myself. That I never intend to adjust myself. I must I must honestly say to you that I never intend to adjust myself, maladjustment. Modern psychology has a word that is probably used more than any other word in psychology, maladjustment. I must honestly say to you, I must honestly say to you that I never intend to adjust myself. Racial segregation and discrimination.
We out of here, y'all. We catch y'all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. right here back in the Remix Morning Show. Peace.